Oh, yes. It is Friday evening. It's just about 7:05 p.m. and I am live on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and maybe other platforms. I don't even know these days. This is an impromptu live stream, so if you're catching this later and you're wondering how to tune in live, I'd say the best way is to go right on over to colememo.com/YouTube and subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you never miss a stream. You may also know this podcast is available for streaming on other streaming platforms, including SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and wherever else you stream podcasts. So happy Friday. I hope you're all having a happy Friday. I'm actually not having too bad of a Friday. I would say the worst thing about today, which I know is going to sound very privileged, is that I woke up and found out that Grand Theft Auto 6 is being delayed. Big disappointment for me. It's like one of the only things I'm looking forward to right now. I love the Grand Theft Auto games. I've been playing Grand Theft Auto since before I probably should have been playing Grand Theft Auto. But that's not usually what I talk about here on the show. Let's get into it for another episode of
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memo. The Cole Memorandum.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memorandum.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memo is what allows this whole thing to go on.
I mean, you have to respect the memo.
Hey, this is Tommy Chong, and you're listening and watching The Cole Memo.
All right, tonight's episode is going to be a good one, maybe a quick one. I don't know. I've got a few different news stories today. I would say our headline story is the dispensaries being attacked by molotov cocktails. Speaking of Grand Theft Auto, that's where I first heard of a molotov cocktail. Before we get into that, though, I just want to share that you can get cannabis drinks delivered right to your door. I'm looking at a menu right now. I don't know, where you're from. It really, I think there's only a few states that you can't get them delivered to. And I think even then, depending on the company, you can. But this company that I'm sharing on screen right now is Cantrip. I'm a huge fan of them. I personally really like their drinks. I've got one in my hand right now. I'm not sipping on it tonight. Haven't actually been using cannabis much at all lately, which I'll be talking about in a future episode. But I will just say that if you want to try some of these drinks out, you can do that with a 15% discount by using the link drinkcantrip.com/colememo, right? If you go to drinkcantrip.com, which again, I'm displaying on my screen right now, you can get a 15% discount and 15% of your order will go towards me so that I can buy more of these THC drinks because I do love them, even though I've not been consuming them as much lately. I will just say that we've got a few upcoming live streams. Once again, I think the best way to be notified when we're going live is colememo.com/YouTube. Tomorrow, I'll be going live around 10 a.m. I might also have a surprise live stream at some point tomorrow with a prohibitionist. In other words, somebody who does not believe cannabis should be legal at all. And on Monday, I'll be going live with a small business owner. And actually, why don't we hear a message from that small business owner?
Sun-Drenched Farm is the manifestation of my dream to be able to provide for my family through offering natural alternative forms of healing and wellness, the same forms that I've been so fortunate to experience on my journey in healing from Lyme disease. With in-house cultivation, solventless extraction, and final product manufacturing, we're able to offer the highest quality product that you can find now at sundrenchedfarm.com.
And somebody was commenting. We are live right now, and for the most part, I can see your comments if you're on YouTube or X. I can display your comments if you comment. So feel free, jump in and comment. And I would comment. I'm squeaking over here. Comment below, and we can display that comment. I got a comment on Instagram that said, wow, what dispensary. I'm going to say that we're going to watch a newscast here in a little bit. Sorry to tease you. But I will say that the person that commented in the feed is wrong on Instagram. They put a dispensary name, and that is not the dispensary that got hit by the Molotov cocktail. We'll be talking about that in just a moment. K and MJ Squared commented, "Hey again. Hey, K and MJ Squared. Happy Friday. Thank you for joining. And folks, if you're tuning in now or after the fact, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It really goes a long way towards helping to support the show. Really quick, before we get into our news stories, including that Molotov cocktail attack, in case you didn't know, Senate Bill 42, which is a bill that would eliminate the requirement that cannabis be stored in an odor-proof container while still requiring it to be kept in a sealed, child-resistant container. The bill doesn't change existing DUI laws. Driving under the influence remains illegal. It also maintains the rule that cannabis must be out of reach while a vehicle is on the road, preventing access by both drivers and passengers. In case you didn't know, a lot of people, when they talk about this bill, they talk about the fact that cops are able to search your car, or, as I say, toss your car, which sucks, right? The other big problem with the way that this law is written, and I've talked to lawyers about this, and I've even had people on my show that have been charged with this crime. If you get pulled over and a cop says, "I smell cannabis," and you might say, "Oh," innocently, because you're not doing anything wrong, you might say, "Oh yeah, you might smell cannabis because I just left a dispensary and I purchased some." And they can turn around and say, "That's a Class A misdemeanor because you have to have it in an odor-proof container." So this bill recently passed the Senate thanks to your support, thanks to the support you all gave the bill. And now it needs to go through a House committee and then the House. And you might be wondering, Cole, wasn't that supposed to happen earlier this week? If you've been watching this show, you might be asking that question. Yes, it was supposed to, but they canceled that hearing. And so it's been rescheduled to Tuesday next week, May 6th at 4 p.m. So the bill needs to go through a House committee, then the House, and then it can be signed by Governor Pritzker, which would make it part of the law. I always like to say that it's unclear to me whether or not Governor Pritzker supports this legislation, but I don't see why he wouldn't. So in order to show your support for the bill, to help make sure we get it through that House committee so that the House can vote on it, you just need to go to colememo.com/odorproof and file a witness slip. If you're wondering, Cole, how the hell do I file a witness slip? Well, that's all covered at colememo.com/odorproof. So I would also say to reach out to your House representatives to let them know that you support the bill. So do that in addition to filing that witness slip. And I'm hoping this will be the last time I have to ask you to file a witness slip. But I also said that earlier this week. And so people have been asking me, and they'll probably even continue to ask me now that I've made this new announcement about the rescheduled hearing. They might be saying, Cole, I filed a witness slip already. Do I need to do it again? Yes, you need to do it again before this Tuesday, May 6th hearing. It needs as much support as possible to move forward. The last few times, law enforcement has outnumbered us with regard to witness slips. The bastards. The first time we did outnumber them, and I covered that on colememo.com. You can actually probably read about it at colememo.com/odorproof. I believe that link is there. I tried to paste all of my coverage in it because I've covered this topic extensively with legal professionals on my podcast. And like I just said, I've written about it at colememo.com. I've also even detailed the issue in my mini documentary, which you can watch now for free at colememo.com/minidoc. I've even interviewed the senator that wrote the legislation to fix the issue. And again, a lot of that work is linked at colememo.com/odorproof. The interview with the senator that I was referencing was released first at colememo.com/Patreon. In case you didn't know, it's just $3 a month to become a member. Members get access to episodes before they release to the public. And a quick heads up, if you're going to sign up, if you're considering to sign up, first of all, thank you. But if you're on an Apple device, I recommend signing up from a computer or a non-Apple device, because Apple adds extra fees on top of what I consider to be that very fair price of $3 a month, which isn't ideal, but hey, big tech always wants their cut. So if you sign up from like a computer and then log in on your phone, you don't have to pay more than $3 a month. I feel like that's a very fair price to get early access to a lot of my content. All of my episodes ultimately release for free on public feeds, but if you'd like to support this show and get early access to episodes before they release to the public, once again, that's colememo.com/patreon. It does cost a lot to do this show, between licensing fees, the cost of travel, the cost of equipment, and more. And this show is brought to you by listeners like you. So if Patreon's not your thing, you can make a one-time monthly or yearly contribution at colememo.com/support. You can literally donate $1. Every little bit of support counts. And look, if you can't support the show financially, that is absolutely fine. One of the best ways to support this show is to smash that like button. Share it with your friends, or leave a positive review from wherever you're listening from. If you could even take a moment to go to like Apple Podcast or Spotify and give me a 5-star review or a thumbs up or whatever. Again, that all goes a really long way. We're just about to talk about the dispensary that got attacked by a molotov cocktail right after this message.
Here in the Midwest, growing amazing food isn't just a hobby, it's who we are. And that's why we created Envy Plant Foods. Whether you're working on a farm or starting a backyard garden, growing hot peppers for sandwiches, or cool lettuce for a chopped salad, Envy has the perfect plant food for you. Blended in Illinois since 1962. Support the Cole Memo and save. Get 10% off fertilizer for your wheat garden at envyplantfoods.com with code CHILL10. Plus, an additional 10% of your order will go to the Cole Memo to help fund the show. Again, that's envyplantfoods.com.
Big shout out to the folks at envyplantfoods.com. If you're looking to start a home garden or home grow, you might consider getting some of those nutrients. So, yeah, very, very interesting times. Very interesting times. Let's talk about an Illinois program that will actually help you clear your cannabis records if you still have one. I know that that's something that unfortunately people struggle with. Let's watch this short news report, which contains some information that might be relevant to you. Let's check it out.
An Illinois service program wants those who were arrested and convicted for cannabis to check their status. New Leaf, Illinois offers free legal services to help people clear and seal their old convictions. You will be asked to provide basic information like birth date, contact information, and the name of the county where the crime took place. If approved, a staff member will research court records to determine if you are eligible.
People may not know that they're eligible. We've had 5,000 people come through New Leaf to get help with their motions to vacate and expunge, and there's still potentially 80,000 people out there with records.
80,000 people out there with records still. That is pretty nuts to hear. So if you're one of those people, consider checking out that service. I hope that you find that helpful. Okay, well, let's talk about it. So a few dispensaries in the state of Illinois, I posted about it on social media, were apparently attacked by a Molotov cocktail. I started off the show talking about Grand Theft Auto 6 being delayed. And I said, one of the first places I heard about a Molotov cocktail was playing that game. I was probably playing it a little bit earlier than I should have been playing. Let's watch this report. And I just want to remind you all, we are live. So if you want to drop your comment below, we can display it on screen. I can acknowledge it and continue the conversation. I definitely want to hear what you all think about this. Here it is. Let's watch the newscast about dispensaries being attacked with Molotov cocktail. Dispensaries plural, by the way. Just, crazy. Multiple dispensaries at this point apparently have been attacked with Molotov cocktails. The suspect is still at large. Apparently, I might be getting some surveillance footage of one of the attacks. I'll keep you posted on that. But without further ado, Let's watch this footage.
A pair of dispensaries have fallen victim to arson attacks just this week. Security video capturing the most recent one in North Center.
And WGN's Jenna Barnes is live with the latest on the investigation tonight. Jenna?
Now, Ray and Micah, police say 2 dispensaries, one here in North Center, attacked by molotov cocktails at the same time of day by what police suspect is the same arsonist.
I mean, they're just like a staple of the community at this point.
Morgan Melker is a medical cannabis card holder and a regular at Chicago Cannabis Company.
The staff is incredible. They're super sweet. Like, it's just very kind and very well owned and run.
That's why she can't believe the business was targeted by an arsonist. And Chicago police say it's not the only dispensary attacked. Early Sunday morning in the 3 o'clock hour, officers say a male dressed in dark clothing, his face covered, broke a window here with a hammer, then lit a Molotov cocktail and tossed it inside. It landed on the tile and caused little damage. A week earlier, the cannabis dispensary in Portage Park wasn't as lucky. It remains boarded up, a sign on the door telling customers it'll be closed until further notice. Police suspect the same arsonist is responsible because they say surveillance video captures him carrying out the same Molotov cocktail attack at the same time of day.
That would be shocking to me because why? It's usually a low-key type stuff.
Back at Chicago Cannabis Company, an employee tells us he fears the suspect may have been trying to make a statement.
It's insane. I think it's really upsetting that cannabis has been like demonized in this way because it's really just trying to help people.
Police want business owners and neighbors to be on alert. They have not identified the suspect. They're asking anyone with information about who it may be to contact them. You can do it anonymously at cpdtip.com. We're live in North Center tonight. Jenna Barnes, WG.
Yeah, so, if you know anything about that, definitely let the authorities know, because that is frankly unacceptable. What was interesting, I thought about that story, and I'm curious what you all think. I can see people are tuned in live. Comment below and we can display your comment. I'm curious what you think. What I found interesting about that story is that the Chicago Cannabis Company, I mean, it's a retail store. I wouldn't, I could see how you would think it is a dispensary because it does sell cannabis, but it sells hemp, and the other dispensary that they showed sells marijuana. In case you didn't know, there is a difference, and it's small. It's just a legal difference. It's completely arbitrary. It's not based in science, but there is a difference. We're talking cannabis, but marijuana, which I tend to not use that word, but again, it's the legal term for it, is what you'll find in the state dispensaries, the dispensaries that were created as a result of the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act, which was voted into law in 2019. It became the law of the land in 2020. And that's what everybody thinks of when they think of as legal cannabis in the state of Illinois. But fun fact, the Farm Bill, which is a piece of federal legislation, legalized hemp in 2018, which is all cannabis that has less than 0.3% THC. And that's how you can get these drinks, for example. So you might be confused right now because if you look really closely at this drink, it's a 50 milligram drink, which to some might seem like a big dose. But for myself, it's a pretty nice dose. It's good. I enjoy it. But the point of what I'm trying to say is that is still less than 0.3% of the total product. And I'll display a graphic on screen that might help you understand this if you're just like, what the fuck does that even mean? Because that's the common reaction I get is like, what the hell are you talking about? So here we go. I'm displaying it on my screen right now. Let me make it a little bit bigger. If a product has just 0.3% THC and the rest of it is other things, like let's say cornstarch, sugar, gelatin, even CBD, then the product is considered to be hemp. And I'm saying that in air quotes because, again, it's just this arbitrary distinction that was created by federal law. For all intents and purposes, and I actually am going to be shipped some of these, you can get like 100 milligram drinks. A lot of the cannabis companies, from the state of Illinois have started to release these products themselves. In fact, Green Thumb Industries, not to give free advertising to anybody, but if you've ever heard of the company GTI, they have a whole hemp line of products where they sell products that you could get in the dispensary mailed right to your door. Or if you go to a concert venue called the Salt Shed, they have a Rise dispensary inside of there, but it's not actually a dispensary licensed under the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act. It's a hemp shop that is selling Farm Bill compliant cannabis. You might be thinking, wow, this seems silly. And I agree. But look, it is what it is. And I'm not going to complain because it's federally legal cannabis. Like I say, to be able to get a product like this mailed to your door, a 50 milligram drink, a drink that has 50 milligrams of THC in it. If you would have told me that in the past, I would have said, like, if you would have told me that even 10 years ago, I would have said, that's a future I want to live in, right? And we're living in it. We're living in it, people. That's the future we're living in. So once again, if you want to get some of those drinks, I'll just give another plug. drinkcantrip.com/Cole Memo. You'll get a 15% discount off of your order. I get 15% kicked back to me so that I can buy more drinks because I fucking love them. The comments are rolling in, just so you know. We are live. So if you want to comment below, we can display your comment. Somebody said, okay, now I got time. What's the story and where is it? So if you're just missing it, we actually just covered it. It was on WGN, and I'll try to drop it in the comments for you if you want to go and check it out. But basically, a dispensary and a hemp shop were attacked with a molotov cocktail, and pretty nuts, pretty crazy. Actually, the hemp shop that was attacked, the owner of that shop will be on the show tomorrow at 10 a.m. So at the beginning of the live stream, I announced upcoming live streams. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., I'll be sitting down with the owner of that shop. Basically the Chicago Cannabis Company, which is the hemp shop I was just telling you about, and I believe it was a shop called the Cannabist, were targeted in these attacks. I believe the subject is still at large. Let me just double check this. I'll pull up this story and I'll throw it in the comments if you're wanting to check it out for yourself. It actually doesn't have them named in the article, but it definitely shows the businesses in the story. So I'll put that in the comments if people want to check that out. But yeah, tomorrow, 10 a.m. And if you check out my YouTube page, I also announced a few other live streams trying to get better about that. And actually, if you want to check out, let's do that really quick. I'll show people how to find the other live streams before we move on to our next story. So if you go to colememo.com/YouTube, which I will display on my screen right now, you are presented with a button that you can click, which takes you to our YouTube channel. And you can see here we are, we're live right here. But if you go to the live tab, you can see other live streams. And actually, if you click this notify me button, it should notify you at the scheduled start time. I believe it should also notify you when we actually go live. Whenever I use this for other people's channels, it usually sends me an email when the channel actually goes live. Somebody just said, boo, why are you booing? Are you booing me? Please don't boo me. Anyways, we are live. So if you drop your comment, I can be sure to acknowledge them below. But yeah, you can see I've got at least 2 more live streams planned. We might have a surprise one tomorrow. This was a surprise live stream. So occasionally I'll just jump right on and we'll start streaming. Speaking of hemp, these drinks that I was just telling you about were featured in a major. Sorry about that if that just played noise in your headphones. Hemp drinks were just featured on Good Morning America, which is it's a news program you might have heard of before. Let's watch the clip from Good Morning America.
Now to our GMA cover story, THC beverages, they're exploding in popularity, projected to become a more than $4 billion industry by 2028. But there are some concerns about them. Eva Pilgrim is back with the story. Good morning again, Eva.
Hey again, Michael. You might have seen them in stores or on social media, cans of THC seltzer or bottles of cannabis-infused spirits. Many are turning to these products as more people look for alternatives to alcohol. A lot of them look very similar to other beverages, and some experts cautioning consumers that they should be mindful of what they're purchasing and how they're consuming them.
Ooh, that's really good.
They're the latest craze, flavored seltzers, but instead of alcohol, THC.
These are favorite.
Mother of two, Bree Giglio of Dallas, Texas, says she turned to THC drinks to help her relax.
It takes off the edge. It helps like calm me down. I feel like especially as a mom, you have like 8 million things in your head all the time.
She says she prefers them over alcohol.
There are no hangovers. I'm not dragging the next day.
The number one growing demographic is the soccer mom between 30 and 45.
THC seltzers are popping up around the country, everywhere from gas stations to liquor stores, even in states where marijuana sales aren't legal. The reason? Under the federal farm bill, hemp-derived THC, called Delta 9, is legal nationally as long as the plant has a THC content of 0.3% or less, allowing beverage makers to use those plants to make drinks. The Coalition for Adult Beverage Alternatives, made up of several popular THC seltzer brand manufacturers, is actually pushing for more regulations on their products.
How much are these regulated?
It varies state to state, so it is a little bit of the Wild West. We have about 18 states right now that have current regulations in place where they are regulating hemp at the state level, very similar to how alcohol is being regulated.
The majority of states have no regulation, from age restrictions to quality control. Some experts worry about the potency of these drinks, which come in a range from 2.5 milligrams to as high as 100 milligrams, saying if you don't know your tolerance, it can be dangerous.
Lovely.
Reality star Bethany Frankel sharing a recent experience on social media after she says she drank too much of a THC beverage.
So I didn't read the bottle, and now I'm hearing from you guys that a serving is 1.5 ounces, and I had 8 to 10, so I had like 4 servings.
Another concern, product placement and making sure people know what they're buying when they pick up a can. In South Carolina, we found 20 milligram cans right next to energy drinks. In Texas, my producer found 50 milligram cans in the same fridge as regular flavored seltzers. Both of these finds at gas stations.
If you're a complete novice and you have like a 50 milligram can of one of these drinks, what happens to you physically?
So a number of different things could happen to you, and it's impossible to know because the range of response is so variable. THC can increase your heart rate, and instead of feeling relaxed, they may feel anxious, they may feel paranoid, they may feel physically nauseated.
So experts warn if you are going to give these a try, start with a low dose and take it slow.
Now, I was tipped off to the story by someone that accidentally bought one of these thinking it was a regular seltzer. She lives in a state where marijuana isn't legal and was surprised to discover what she'd purchased. The brands we talked to say they're trying to avoid that by putting additional signs in the aisles to educate about THC and dosage, as well as clearly marking the cans, guys.
All right, so very interesting to see a story like this on a platform like that. Good Morning America, everybody's heard of it. And once again, we are live. So if you want to comment below, we can display your comment. I will display a comment that just came in here in a moment that I think makes a really good point. But I just wanted to, for folks that might be tuning in live right now, because they may have missed the point and they may have just watched that news stream, and they might be like, Again, I think the biggest thing that people get caught up on is the 0.3% Delta 9 THC. And I think the best explanation I can give you is this graphical explanation by our friend Brian Box Brown, who you can find his work at boxbrown.com. So think of this, I know this is showing a gummy right now, but think of it as a drink. If the drink is mostly, filled with sugar and other things and just has, 0.3% of the total product has THC, then it is, and I'm going to show my screen here in the bottom right-hand corner and use air quotes, hemp. I say that because it's just a legal definition we made up. It's not based in science. It's just something we made up. And if you make a product like the one that they showed, which I actually have right here, our friends at Drink Cantrip, this exact product was in that news stream. That's why it may have looked a little bit familiar. You can make a product that has 50 milligrams of THC, which is a pretty high dose for some people. Like I said earlier, for myself, I tend to like it. I think it's a lot of fun. Crank it up a notch, right? But you could have a product ranging from, I've seen products 1 to 5 milligrams. I've seen them all the way up to 50 milligrams. And like I said, I will be receiving some products soon that are 100 milligrams. So you can do all of that and remain within this 0.3% threshold, just so long as there are other things in the drink, like sugar, cornstarch, gelatin. Again, this is just an example for a gummy because it helps people understand. You can legally qualify, your product rather, can legally qualify as hemp. And like I said, if you would have shown somebody this even 10 years ago and just said, yeah, just make sure that, you can fit a lot of THC in there, more than most people can consume, just so long as you don't exceed that arbitrary 0.3% threshold, then you are hemp and you are legal nationwide, as Good Morning America just said. So one of the comments that came in, they said, I understand. So they said, I don't think GTI will ever regain my respect for their actions against medical patients and hemp farmers last session. And I just want to say, because I use GTI as an example, I use Curaleaf as an example, because these are companies that tend to lobby against open markets, right? They will, they don't like it when anybody and everybody can participate. And that's exactly what hemp is. And so to see a company like GTI or Curaleaf get involved in it, I think it's notable. I'm not saying, I don't bring up GTI as a shining example. I don't bring up Curaleaf as a shining example. I bring it up because actually what a lot of these people do that are against products like this one, they'll say, oh, it's this sketchy gas station product, as if most of us don't go to a gas station on like nearly a weekly basis. I don't know where the denigration of gas stations came from, but they're, I don't know about you, but I go to gas stations. Fun fact, in Illinois, I go to gas stations sometimes and get pizza. Casey's. Free advertising for Casey's General Store. I use them as examples because sometimes people will say that these products are fake. I can assure you this product is not fake. And I just to round out my point here, I use those companies as examples because they are publicly traded companies and they're literally selling the same products that they sell in the dispensaries via the hemp channel. So when people say these products are fake, I say, okay, so are these big companies selling fake products? The answer is no, they're not. But yeah, I mean, this comment by my friend Gene Lacey, who's about to be in a really great episode that I'll probably release tomorrow at colememo.com/Patreon. She's saying the number of people who think Delta 9 only exists in hemp these days is crazy. Absolutely. That's like exactly the point that I was trying to make. Some people will say I don't like Delta 9. I like to smoke THC. Well, fun fact, genius, Delta 9 is THC. It's the chemical name, or I guess the scientific name. Delta 9 THC is actually the full name. So, there's been this confusion made by people that argue against hemp because it's an open market, and they'll say, "Oh, this fake weed, right?" And it's like, I just, it's an easily dispelled talking point. Delta 9 THC is Delta 9 THC. They are molecularly the same. I've had people like Charlie Bachtel on the show who has said, I mean, in these companies, like I said, they're not only starting their own lines, but they're also being honest about the fact when Charlie Bachtel says it's a truly identical product. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know. This whole topic makes my head go round because it's like those talking points when people said it's fake weed. Those were pretty powerful talking points in my opinion because they've obviously stuck. So, and Gene says Casey's, please sponsor. Yeah, that'd be awesome if Casey's sponsored. Somebody commented and said, I don't think we should expect the cannabis industry to be any different from food or alcohol. Capitalism is about making money. Those who persevered through prohibition did it for medicine. Yeah, well said. Well said. And thank you all, by the way, for tuning in. I've got a few more clips that I want to show, some Illinois specific clips. Since we're talking about hemp, and actually all these clips are Illinois hemp clips, some people wonder why this is such an issue. And I think that CityCast Chicago did a really good job of covering this topic. If you've not heard of CityCast Chicago, it's a podcast out of Chicago. You may have guessed it. And let's just watch this short clip that I took off of one of their recent episodes. I think it really hits the nail on the head as to why hemp is even a point of discussion in the state of Illinois, but also nationwide. But particularly in the state of Illinois, it has to do with how we rolled out legalization here in Illinois. So let's watch this clip.
This debate is sort of so interesting. This is one of the most fascinating policy debates, I think, happening in Illinois right now. And I don't think it would be quite so fraught if Illinois' legal cannabis rollout hadn't been so restricted. Illinois was the only state back when it passed in 2019. At the time, was the only state to pass this through the General Assembly, through the legislature. You know, I remember it when Illinois passed it, and it was like, okay, now they've actually thought about what they want to do from the jump, so this will be much smoother. And then the problem is nobody could get a license. Like, it was so restrictive.
Yeah, I was like, the way it was designed, it gave the upper hand to the medical dispensaries, which meant it gave an upper hand to big weed. And so they got a foothold in the city. And so when these licenses started coming out, when the lottery started happening, right, you saw a lot of shady business where big business was trying to partner with like your social justice candidates, right?
Oh, yeah. The concept of minority ownership, really kind of what was that and what did that mean?
Which neighborhoods would get, like how many dispensaries could be in a ward or in the neighborhood, like who would get first dibs to the license. It caused a lot of problems and it had to be changed a few times. But which is interesting because at this point, some alders' argument is, oh, look, we've regulated cannabis so we can do this. We've gotten over the hump. And so maybe we can do this part a lot smoother. But like you said, we've already had so many businesses.
But the hope is, right, as a result of doing it maybe not as well as we could have, that perhaps we've learned some lessons, right? That's sort of number one. Maybe we've learned something. I don't know. You never know. Number two, I think if you begin to regulate these other products, it gives you a chance to maybe re-examine the cannabis, how cannabis licensing works, particularly on the retail side, on the dispensary side, right? Maybe again, these are opportunities that are presented to lawmakers, in my opinion, because these products are not going away. They're going to stay. People are going to find them one way or another, with the smoke shops in particular.
So, you know, it's it really has to do with licensing, and That's not just from that podcast. You can even hear it from the Speaker of the House.
Welch says tensions ran high due to lingering bad feelings about the lack of minority ownership in the legal cannabis system.
There's a perception that the social equity program was not done correctly in the cannabis space. And here we have an industry where there are a lot of black and brown owners currently in existence, and the legislation that's currently proposed would literally put those people out of business right now. And it would turn it over to the cannabis people.
So there are just, as Speaker Welch put it, lingering bad feelings from how we handled the rollout of legal cannabis. And many people see this as an opportunity to get involved in the space. And I don't know if I can blame them. Some people call it a loophole. Well, I have to wonder, what is the Cole memo? It's not just the name of this show, by the way. It was a policy memorandum that was issued during the Obama administration that said, hey, look, I know that cannabis is federally illegal, but if you follow the Cole memo, your state can continue to do these little experiments. I don't know if that's a loophole to federal law, but it certainly sounds like it. And this is a case where it's, and we can pull up the language of the Farm Bill right now. I love to do this. So if you Google the Farm Bill 2018 full language, let's do this. Let's look at the Farm Bill. Okay, this is going to be fun. A little bit of a learning lesson. Then I got a few more clips and we'll get out of here. I see we got another comment in, so I'll acknowledge that. But let's just take a look at the language from the Farm Bill. So here's the Farm Bill, and this is super easy. So this is a 529-page bill. But again, this is super easy. Let's go to the last page of the bill, the very last page, right? Pretty sure this is the Farm Bill. Yes, indeed, this is the Farm Bill. Okay, so let's take a look at this. The language I'm displaying right now on screen says, conforming changes to the Controlled Substances Act. Okay, so here's what I was talking about earlier. The legal term marijuana, which is spelled with an H to make it sound really scary, marijuana, does not include hemp. So it says THC is Schedule 1 as set forth in Section 202C of the Controlled Substances Act, except for THC and hemp. So, there's this conversation at the federal level right now about rescheduling. And you might recall that as a result of that, a public comment period opened up and allowed people to say their opinions on the rescheduling process. And you might recall that 69%, I think over 42,000 comments were submitted. 69% of those comments for the rescheduling process said, we shouldn't there I go squeaking again. We shouldn't reschedule cannabis. We should deschedule cannabis. In case you didn't know, alcohol is not a controlled substance. Tobacco is not a controlled substance. And so the argument behind cannabis legalization for the longest period of time has been that we should regulate cannabis sort of like we do with alcohol and cigarettes. In other words, it should not be a controlled substance. And that is what this language in the Farm Bill did for, and I'm going to say it in air quotes, hemp. And I mean, again, you can see it right here. The term marijuana, the legal term marijuana, does not include hemp. THC is Schedule 1, except for THC and hemp. This is where it gets silly. This is where this comes back into play. This is THC from hemp. It's really funny. It's really funny. There's literally no difference, by the way. Before now, if you were to ask any licensed cannabis brand, how do you get your cannabis plants? How do you get your seeds? The answer used to be immaculate conception, which is sort of a joke. It's a concept from the Bible. How did Mary get pregnant? She didn't have sex with anybody. It was immaculate conception. The baby just appeared, right? In other words, the seeds just appeared. Well, thanks to hemp, these cannabis companies in states don't have to lie about where they got their seeds anymore, because seeds qualify as hemp, so it's legal to buy. And I guess my point is, they are literally the foundation of our legal cannabis. You could argue the foundation of our legal cannabis programs are hemp, because that's how they grow their plants. That's how they're able to acquire their seeds. So crazy stuff, people. Please drop your comments below. It looks like we got a couple of comments in. Somebody said most products, wherever they're sold, are made using CBD that is heated at 126 Fahrenheit with zeolite, then extracted with ethanol to make THC distillate. So maybe we stop using dispensaries. And then they corrected themselves. They said 126 degrees Celsius, not Fahrenheit. I have heard for sure that there is synthetic, or you might call it semi-synthetic THC. I've heard that, but the reason a brand like Cantrip stands out is because they do not do any conversions from CBD. And it says it right here on the can. Yeah, naturally extracted THC. So they do say it costs a little bit more, and that's why you might notice the drinks cost a little bit more. But if you're at all concerned about converted THC, go to drinkcantrip.com/ColeMemo for a 15% discount for some naturally extracted THC. It certainly does happen. I've heard of it. I personally don't have any concerns regarding that. But if you do, I respect your concerns, and that's why I would recommend a brand like Drink Cantrip. So let's start to close out the show with some local coverage on this issue. Here's the first clip.
But he talked about how there's this issue with the hemp industry in Illinois. You've obviously got, even within the Democratic Party, the majority that control things, there's some differences of opinion. Should we regulate hemp more, go after the stuff like Delta 8 that's getting into convenience stores? While you've got the hemp industry, like, we are a good steward of economic principles, and we want to be able to have that marketplace without the stiff regulation. It's not, THC-driven cannabis. It's hemp that they're producing. And Reich says, instead of the governor going in and talking about El Salvador and trying to butt heads with Donald Trump and El Salvador's president, he really does just need to come back home and work on these issues.
I think instead of swanning around the Sunday morning talk shows, the governor ought to convene the leadership of both the House and the Senate and get this problem fixed. Thank you.
We'll see if the governor speaks more about this. He does have an event today in Chicago, and the press are going to be there to ask him questions.
So somebody just commented, and feel free to drop your comments below. Somebody said in Illinois, the hemp bill, one of the hemp bills, I think your point is, would make viable parts of the hemp plant illegal to everyone except hemp growers. I actually may not know which bill you're talking about. I will say, though, just a small point here. Let me try to find this point with regard to hemp and illegality, because from what I understand, I might have to send this to myself. I think this is on my other account. That's all right. I'll get back to this comment here in just a second. Mason from Sun-Drenched Farm says, I've got some solventless CBD, THC, strain-specific drinks coming for you to try soon, Cole. Yeah, dude, send them my way. I will definitely try those out and let you know what I think, let the people know what I think. And I appreciate you for doing that. And if you want to, I played the ad earlier. If you want to tell people where they can find your products, definitely do that. You're saying the current one does. Are you talking about the total THC? Is that what you're kind of talking about with cultivation? Because there's what I was looking for. I'm going to send it to myself. My apologies. We are live, so if you've got your comments, drop them below. If anybody's interested in joining the show, by the way, I can turn it on so that we can take callers. We're taking callers, just like talk radio. You know what I'm saying? Let's look at this really quick, just because you are right that Bills, this is actually, speaking of Cantrip, this is, I believe, one of the owners from Cantrip. If you can't see this, I'll try to zoom it in a little bit. He says, it's been shown in court a few times now that states can regulate and even ban hemp, but they cannot criminalize it without running afoul of the supremacy clause. It's a key distinction. The most effective argument in court is usually if a bill runs afoul of dormant commerce. And the rest of his comment has to do with a Texas hemp bill. So yeah, I'm still not sure exactly what you're referring to. I'm not disputing it. I'm just honestly trying to figure out what you're talking about. So anyways, though, let's watch another hemp clip. And if you want to clarify what you're talking about, please drop that in the comment. And anybody else, drop your comments. We can display them on screen. If you haven't already, smash that like button. If you're listening to this podcast somewhere else, and somebody sold me that recently, by the way. They were like, Cole, I was listening to your podcast on the road and you kept saying smash that like button. I was trying to figure out how to do that. That's a YouTube thing. If you're watching this on some other platform, just engage with it however you can. If there's like a thumbs up button or whatever, like any engagement, that helps the show. It helps put the show in front of other people's eyes. So yeah, comment below. We can display your comment. Let's watch this other clip on hemp. And by the way, this is from a show, and that last clip we watched was also from this same show. It's called Illinois in Focus Daily. It's a show that airs daily during the week, and it kind of breaks down Illinois policy. Highly recommend it if you're wondering what the hell's going on in Illinois, because you'll find clips like this one.
Committee. Then later on in the day, they had the Senate Liquor Committee meet virtually, and they discussed a whole host of things, from making sure that those who are craft distillers can get their products direct to customers instead of having to go through a retailer or having to go through a certain type of regulatory framework. So they had a long conversation about that. They had other conversations about distributing craft brew and so on. But one thing that really took a lot of attention was the idea of regulating hemp-infused intoxicating beverages. All right, so Illinois legalized medicinal marijuana. Gosh, what was that, a decade plus ago? And then in 2019, they legalized recreational marijuana. And then you had the U.S. Farm Bill, I believe this was 2018, essentially allow for industrial hemp to be produced. And that opened up the gates to allow for people to grow hemp and find different types of products. You can make textiles and fabrics and oils and all kinds of stuff. Feed for livestock, but you can also make smokable hemp, and people are even driving things like Delta 8 and Delta 9, I think, is that what it is? But there's also concerns about how these hemp products are getting into convenience stores and being labeled like candy, and some kids getting their hands on it. And some of these hemp products, while it might be low THC, it still has some intoxicating qualities to it. So they're wanting to try to regulate this, especially as more and more you have a focus on different types of hemp products like hemp-infused beverages. State Senator Bill Cunningham saying that this is an issue that needs to be addressed as the popularity of these products grows and grows.
We're anxious to get input from other stakeholder groups within this space, and we are open to making modifications to the bill. But I think it's time that this form of beverage be entered into the regulatory space, and we think this is a good way to do it.
So he wants to have some regulation. Now, they tried bringing this up last year, but there was a lot of consternation, good word for you, a lot of conflict in the House. And there were even stories that when the governor, who supports this type of legislation, tried to send his staff to go talk to a House Democratic caucus, it would turn into a yelling match. And a lot of the black caucus opposing these regulations on hemp because the hemp industry is saying, hey, we can't get into the legal marijuana business because it's so expensive. The regulations are over the top. It's really only allowed for the big conglomerates to be able to come in and buy out smaller operations. So the hemp industry is something that minority communities are able to get into and to thrive. And if they have more regulations, it's going to make it that much more difficult. So Justin Ward of the Illinois Healthy Alternatives Association, also a farmer, he discussed how these types of regulations on the hemp industry are really going to hurt and possibly impact the economy in a negative way.
We strongly oppose the proposed three-tier system included in the bill, which would prevent hemp producers from selling directly to consumers. This system mirrors that of alcohol and would force small hemp businesses to rely on distributors, effectively limiting their market access. For small businesses like those in our association, this would be a major obstacle. The ability to engage directly with consumers has been a critical part of our growth and success.
So obviously, some of the regulations that are being proposed here, limiting or having them go through the Department of Natural Resources, the Department of Ag, and elsewhere, testing products and having a variety of different types of hoops they got to jump through. Clearly, when it comes to growing hemp, they have to have checks. And one of the commenters does point out that you have to have a license to grow hemp in the state. True, and they do come out and they test the hemp products. They test the hemp products for certain levels of THC, and if there's just a notch above that certain level allowed, then you got to destroy all the hemp. But still, you have hemp thriving in Illinois when it comes to the production of it. But more regulations would do more impact. So all of this obviously is an ongoing conversation, something that we'll likely hear a lot more about as we get closer to the tail end of session, and we'll keep you posted here with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, get the headlines at thecentersquare.com with the newsletter, and get.
Yep, that's the Center Square, like I was telling you about, and this show has gone a little bit longer than I planned, but that's okay because we've had some really good discussion today. Be sure to comment below. We're going to be wrapping here pretty soon. If you've got any thoughts that you want me to acknowledge, but I just want to give a quick plug for some of the work that I've put out there on this subject. If you'd like to read more about it, if you go over to colememo.com, as he was just saying, I think that was a good word. There's been consternation around this topic, and as he said, this there was recently a push from lawmakers and licensed cannabis businesses to actually ban these products. I'm displaying an article that I wrote almost a year, a little bit over a year ago at this point when this whole thing started. The Cannabis Business Association of Illinois held a press conference. You can see the picture here. You can read some of the statements, some of the questions and answers, some of the other professional reporting on this event. I'm seeing some comments roll in. I'll get to those here in just a moment. This is a topic, honestly, we've covered since the beginning of this show. I mean, you go back to episode 3, and there was we had a whole debate with people on both sides of this issue. If you want to read about Senate Executive Committee hearing, there was some good stuff in there. Maybe we can close out the show with watching my satirical coverage on this issue. I cover this because, or the way that I cover this is I show, at least this hearing, we've got a transcript of what was said, a little bit of fact checks. Right here, you can actually see, and I don't know if you guys knew this, but here is an Illinois dispensary product. You can see the BioTrack label here. And let me make this a little bit bigger. If you look at this ingredients section, look what it says right there under ingredients. Hemp-derived extract. Yep, you got it. Hemp can be sold in dispensaries. I actually even interviewed a cannabis operator from Maramed, which is a cannabis operator here in the state of Illinois, and they even, admitted on my show that they use hemp in their products. Let's watch the little clip, and then I'll tell you how they're able to do that.
Is Maramed in the space? Do they have any thoughts about the space?
Well, I mean, from an innovation standpoint, we're using hemp-derived cannabinoids in the majority of our products. So we are participating in the hemp-derived marketplace. I would say we're keeping all of our products today within regulated state systems that we operate. So everything that we talked about today is really where we're focused.
So to break down kind of what he just said, it's what I was just saying earlier. You go to the dispensary, as I just showed a dispensary product, it's got hemp in it. There's just no difference. There literally is no difference. And if you're wondering how they're able to do this, it's because there is a long-standing variance. I've actually got it attached to this article. It was recently extended just last year. It goes through this year. It's like I say, it is a long-standing variance. It has been extended multiple times since, I believe, before 2020. Yeah, so there's really no difference. A lot of the stuff that you buy in the dispensary can not only qualify as hemp legally, but literally contains hemp. I think I might have a small little clip I can show from cannabis industry lawyer Tom Howard to further break this down. Here we go. And my apologies, there's going to be some background music. It's because this was a promo for an episode that I did with cannabis industry lawyer Tom Howard. So here we go.
If you go and buy weed at your medical dispensary locally or at your adult use dispensary, it's probably going to be hemp. The vast majority of the ones that you see in an Illinois dispensary qualify as hemp. They'll be.
Okay, so I'm pausing it right here. If you look at the percentage, it's 0.01%, which again qualifies as hemp because the definition of hemp is anything below 0.03%.
And in Missouri, too. Michigan don't play that. The THCA loophole is really big.
So, that's just another interesting little thing. Just to plug some more work I've done. The big thing that was covered in that clip is that the push to ban hemp failed. I wrote about it in this article, which is labeled "Push to Ban Federally Legal Cannabis in Illinois Fails" alongside the Cannabis Omnibus. And as Eric Bishop from Center Square covered, there was people crying. There was a lot of fingers being pointed. It was really dramatic. I mean, it quickly became heated and hostility escalated to the point where a staffer, overwhelmed by accusations and allegedly reduced to tears, left the meeting. Governor Pritzker said the individual felt frightened after being called a liar and being pointed at by opponents of the bill. It got very, very dramatic. This topic is heated, to say the least. If you want to see, we've in episode 152, we've broken down Governor Pritzker's press conference where he supported that bill that we were talking about. And just to kind of step away from all of that, if you're wondering what I think the answer to this whole problem is, I wrote a 3-page policy paper that not only breaks down this topic a little bit more, but it also gives suggestions for what I think we could do to just fix this problem. Just fix it. Because there are some valid concerns, I think, on both sides. For example, people on the anti-hemp side might say, well, the testing for hemp is not strict enough. That was kind of covered in the Good Morning America video. People on the hemp side point out that in the marijuana side, that testing also is not a golden standard. It's not a silver bullet, to use a few different terms. It's very well recognized that lab shopping, potency inflation, moldy products on shelves, something that we've interviewed investigators from the Chicago Sun-Times about, are all problems that exist in the marijuana industry, as I say in air quotes. So, I think there are some valid points on both sides of this discussion. And I think that this policy paper that I wrote is a good way towards, goes a long way towards fixing it. I've actually been reached out to by regulators within the state of Illinois that say that they support this framework that I've kind of set forth. I've had a former cannabis regulator on my show, which you can actually watch that episode right here. You can see it says, I recently discussed this paper on the podcast with a former cannabis regulator. So you can click that and listen to that conversation if you'd like. And yeah, I've covered this topic a lot. So if you're watching this live, I won't have the links in the show notes just yet. I always try to go back and add links to the show notes. So if you want to see all these things, if you're having trouble finding it on colememo.com, I try to flash these headlines so that you can search them up using the search box up here in the right-hand corner. But if you're having problems, I'll put links in the show notes. So maybe just check back at a later time. But again, the whole goal with this policy paper is to take the best parts of these policies and leave the rest. So some of the best parts of hemp policy, I'm holding up this drink right now, is that you can get it delivered to your door. Governor Pritzker was asked years ago at this point whether or not he would support delivery. And guess what? A bill has not ended up on his desk. Meanwhile, hemp is literally delivering via DoorDash. If you live in Chicago, you can get hemp products, legal THC products, delivered right to your door via DoorDash, or you can just go to drinkcantrip.com/colememo and get that 15% discount and get drinks delivered right to your door. The show's about to wrap. We got a lot of comments coming in. Brandon says, smash the like button. Thank you so much for tuning in, Brandon. I really appreciate you. Genetic Farm said, I would rather kids get their hands on THC than alcohol. That is a good, look, I would rather than not. What's funny is I agree with your point. Really quick though, this article that I showed a second ago, they brought these products that I'm displaying on my screen up, and they're like, well, these kids, they get confused about these products that look like candy. First of all, those products are already illegal because of something called copyright infringement. Second of all, I don't think a kid is going to mistakenly purchase these products because a package of Chips Ahoy or a package of Trolley sour crawlers cost like $3. Meanwhile, these products that are pictured right here cost like $20 to $30. A kid's not going to go, whoops, I just fucking spent 20, unless your kid is just, you need to educate your kids that candy doesn't cost $20. And my final, and I think most powerful point, I don't know about you all, but when I was a kid, I was taught candy is going to rot your teeth out. Cole, you shouldn't eat candy. And I always shook my fist at the sky. I was like, but I like candy. Candy is not for kids. I don't know when we decided that candy was for kids. And I don't know when we decided that adults can't enjoy candy either. Candy is not good for anybody. But to pretend that it's just for kids, I think is just absolutely, I'm probably sounding old right now, but we lost our way. Okay. Mason says, we need you in politics. I don't know about that. They will, if I ran for politics, I think this podcast will take me right out of politics. People will go, Cole's running for politics? Well, have you seen his series on legal sex workers where he sits down with pimps and sex workers? I about said prostitutes. Sometimes they don't like to be called that. Some of them love it, though. Some of them are like, yes, I am a prostitute. I think as soon as I start running for, if I were ever to do that, that would take me right out of it. They would just play a few clips from my podcast and say, this guy sits down and does drugs and interviews prostitutes. Do you want him running your government? And K and MJ squared says, and by the way, if you want to see those interviews with me at a brothel interviewing prostitutes, go to colememo.com/sex. Maybe this is a good time. This will probably get copyright infringement on my episode, but I don't think I've played this one on the show yet. Let's rock it.
I'm Cowboy Cole, and I'm the quickest drug slinger on this side of the Mississippi. I used to use this little gun when I was a prostitute.
I might be the roughest and the toughest, but things can still get hard for us cowboys while we're out dicking around on the range. That's why I consume excessive amounts of psychedelic mushrooms, cannabis, and anything else that I can get my hands on.
We're going to the psychedelic rodeo.
No matter how sacred or inconsiderate it might be to some.
Cowboys live off the land. That's why I pick every peyote button I find. Who gives a shit if it takes 20 years to grow? I'm about to go saddle up my horse, and then we're gonna go to a fucking brothel.
You can join me on my trip out to the wild, wild west, through the hollers and the hills, to a licensed whorehouse in the middle of a desert at thecolememo.com/sex.
Hell yeah. And that is definitely going to get this show copyright infringed because, whoa, Black Betty, Bam Balam. I just used their fucking, I used that instrumental, and I'm sure that that is going to demonetize this episode. But who cares? We don't do it for the money. We do it for the, people. Someone says, Genetic Memory Farm says, seems like a failure to recognize that different consumers want various levels of safety. No one wants to take responsibility for the state's unfunded debt. The hope was cannabis would be like Colorado and solve the debt, they say. And yeah, absolutely. It's actually one of the last quotes that is in my mini documentary, which you can stream now at colememo.com/minidoc. It's actually on the ticker right there. One of the last quotes that is featured in my mini documentary is that we should look at this as a justice issue instead of a revenue issue. And to your point, it seems like that's why we passed these cannabis laws so that we can get more tax money. And I mean, that's what the people always told me. They always said, they're not going to legalize it until they figure out how to tax the shit out of it. And they were right. Those people were right. K and MJ squared said, great episode, Cole. Thank you for the update. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for smashing that like button. And I promised you before I go, oh, you're talking about, if people want to look into what K and MJ squared was saying earlier that confused me, they said, I think it removed the link I posted, which makes the comment not make sense. It's in the J car section 2000.20. So I'm displaying that on my screen right now if I just read that incorrectly. I think what you might be referring to is the total THC language regarding cultivation, but I don't know. I could be wrong. We're going to start to close out the show. If you've got any last second comments, drop them below. As promised, I wanted to show you my satirical coverage on this topic. We've been talking about hemp the whole time. Maybe you've seen this before, maybe not. But this is my satire, which some people in the industry did not find as funny as I did to make. But I hope that you find this funny. Here it is.
I'm a cannabis industry billionaire, and you know what? I'm pretty fucking pissed off about these hemp operators. You see, I've established a firm regulatory foothold within several nascent cannabis markets across these United States. And these motherfuckers think they can just come in and sell weed too? I'm sorry, but that's not how pay to play works. I'm focused on one thing and one thing only.
Cash money, bitch.
We poured at least $600K into lobbying in one state alone in order to ensure we would have no competition. And then progressives like Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell want to come in and pull the rug out from under us? We're working alongside organizations like Smart Approaches to Marijuana and the Drug Enforcement Administration to close what we're calling a loophole, what some are calling an opportunity. Here's the thing. We believe in limited opportunity. In case you haven't figured it out yet, the limitations are what bring in the
cash money, bitch.
The best part of all of this, we have the community's full support on waging this new offensive. We've learned that if we push stories in the media, the community will do the legwork and secure our market for us. We've successfully framed an opportunity as an attack on social equity. Thank you for helping to increase the size of my regulatory moat. Don't let the gators get you. Check out my work at dcolememo.com. I interview drug policy experts, licensed cannabis operators, prostitutes, people in the cocaine industry, and
All right. Well, I hope you found value in this episode of the Cole Memo. And I guess just one last point that I wanted to make before I go. If you got any last second comments, please feel free to drop them below. And this gives me a little bit of an opportunity to play another message from one of our sponsors. But, the topic with regard to like fake weed and hemp, I think the one that gets the most airtime is Delta 8, which first of all, the first place I ever tried Delta 8 was in an Illinois dispensary. I could probably even show you that product that I'm talking about here in just a moment. Where was I going with that? There are a lot of products that we consume in our day-to-day life that are synthetic. Aspirin, vitamin D, caffeine. And what makes a product like that, I think, let me put it this way. What gives people the confidence to consume a product like that and not be worried about any materials that were used in the synthesis of those products are things like GMP standards, right? So in other words, let's apply GMP standards to all cannabis. And if something can't be in a product like aspirin, vitamin D, or caffeine, then it can't be in cannabis. Problem solved. Boom. One last message from some people that helped bring this show to you.
Are you all ready for America's new #1 D9 gummy line? That's right. We are bringing to you Parody Gummy. These vegan gummies are manufactured in a safe harbor facility, so you know they're going to be clean and safe, and they're not going to give you any of the runaround. Coming in, we have 3 amazing flavors for you. We have the Raspberry Riots. Also, we have the Sleepy Joes if you need something to help you sleep at night. And if you're feeling like raging and having a party time, that's right, we have the Pineapple Bad Hombre. If you're feeling like a bad hombre, make sure you head over to www.parodygummy.com and secure your bag today.
There you go. Get your bag. Another comment just came in, and like I say, I'm about to wrap, so get your comments in if you'd like for me to try and respond to your questions. And if you haven't already, hit that like button. But let's display this comment that just came in, which is a freaking awesome question. This is a great way to cap off the episode. Genetic Memory Farms asks, so if we removed the limit on licenses and made them reasonably priced, would that solve all of these problems? And is that purely a function of writing and passing some state legislation? I'm going to answer the second one first. Yes. The second part of your question, is that purely a function of writing and passing state legislation? Absolutely. We need to, as I cover in my mini documentary, we need to completely dismantle the Cannabis Control Act of 1978, which is the main enforcement mechanism for any laws or enforcement surrounding cannabis. In other words, the same laws that have been on the books since 1978 are largely still in effect. We basically just bumped the bar up a little bit so that you can possess 30 grams of cannabis. That's basically all we did. And we added, to the first part of your question, a limited number of producers that can cultivate and sell limited amounts of cannabis. So, first of all, we need to dismantle the Cannabis Control Act of 1978. We need to largely modify the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act, which, to your point, is a function of writing and passing some state legislation. From what I know, there's a really good piece of legislation out there right now, which basically does everything that we're talking about and sort of addresses the first part of your question. Let me make sure I get this bill number right. And I almost don't even want to say it because, if this term ends, it'll be a new bill number. But there is a bill that the Illinois Sonia Harper introduced it. It's supported by the Illinois Hemp Growers Association. And it would require, here we go. We got a little fact sheet. We'll put it on screen here. Again, these bill numbers, I want to just strongly stress, could change. But as of today, May 2nd, 2025, we're talking about House Bill 1775, which would remove the property tax code requirement. And just to briefly address that, that would mean that everybody, including yourself and myself, could get a hemp license. Because as it stands, you can only get a hemp license if you've got property that is zoned correctly. In other words, if you're just living at your house, and maybe this is the point that K and MJ squared was making earlier, you can't get a hemp license because they will check the zoning of your property and they'll say, well, you live on a residential property, so you can't get a hemp license, which is just ridiculous. So that would remove that. It would make it so that there are no license limits. It would create a 21 plus age gate for hemp products. And it would create minimum guidelines for hemp product safety testing and packaging, and ultimately would align Illinois with federal standards by amending the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act to allow hemp as an ingredient. And it would amend the production rules that I think K and MJ was talking about just a moment ago. And so you've asked a really good question, because there's so many different ways in which I could go on this. Yes, we need to remove the limits on licenses. As I've said in the past, I think that localities, just like they can with any other business, should be able to limit licenses. So in case you didn't know, localities have the ability to limit the number of bars in their town or city or township. They can limit the number of restaurants in their town, city, or township or village, or wherever you're at. Local governments have the ability to limit licenses now, and that's okay. I think the state itself should not be in the business of limiting the people who can participate, especially when you consider, back to what I was saying earlier when I kind of started answering your whole question, that if your answer to the limitation on licenses is to continue the criminalization of cannabis, then it's like, what are we even doing? Is cannabis even legal if you're not given an option to legally participate? Also, I promise I'll wrap this up here. But the testing standards as they stand today are ridiculous, and cannabis operators actually agree on this. I've had several testing labs even on the show that agree on this. Let me find this. ACT Labs. I'll display it on my screen right now. The testing standards are just absolutely ridiculous. So I had Dr. Bob Miller on the show from ACT Labs, and he actually testified that Illinois testing standards are so strict, which sounds like a good thing, right? Strict testing standards. That means we have, we're making sure that bad products don't hit the shelves. That's not entirely true. And in fact, what Dr. Bob Miller and others have said, and I'll look up another episode if you want to see this, The Science of Cultivation, I believe is the episode. Yeah, check out episode 112, The Science of Cannabis Cultivation, Testing, and Quality Control. Basically, the standards are so strict that it's causing massive non-compliance. It's causing people to have to remediate or apply kill steps on their cannabis. And it's just not a good thing. So like I say, so many different ways that I could go with this. That's why you asked such a great question. And a few more comments came in. They said, and more to the point, won't current standards just lead to more poor people, mostly black and brown people, getting cited or doing time? Absolutely. And that, my friend, is basically the entire point of my mini documentary. It's the idea that if our only answer to anything cannabis related is the criminal law, then did we even really legalize it? And how are we going to make the rights for those wrongs? You know? And so I'll leave you with that. That was a really great question. I'll probably watch this back and think of so many other things that I could have said in this. But I would just say that check out some of those materials that I just referenced. I'll try to put that in the show notes for people that want to check out those episodes. And I'll just say for the last time, please, if you haven't already, it's free to stream. If you watch it on 2 times speed, you'll get it done in a half an hour, which is not a long time. Check out my mini documentary at colememo.com/minidoc. Folks, happy Friday. And here's a peek at my mini doc if you're wondering. Should I watch it?
Beginning January 1st, 2020, the recreational use of cannabis will be legal in the state of Illinois.
Available to stream now, my mini doc dives into the history of Illinois legalization, starting with
January 1st. What should we expect? The biggest thing that we need people to understand is that January 1, in terms of the criminal justice system here in this state, is the end of prohibition.
See how Illinois missed its chance at real cannabis reform with key failures, including the fact that
the program includes regulation on possession limits.
So people can still be arrested for a possession.
And I want to highlight that in its first year of legalized recreational marijuana in the state of Illinois, they arrested 3 times as many black people for possession than any other race.
We've run into so much cannabis, we've run out of places to put it.
I have represented people and taken their cases through the court system who got charged with more serious crimes only because the police said that they smoked cannabis. And not because the police said you have illegal cannabis, or not because you have too much cannabis, or not because you're high on cannabis, but because I can smell it and that's it.
Attorney goes, he understands that he can't be smoking and his cannabis flower shouldn't be open. And I was like, I'd like to say for the record that I was not smoking and my flower was not open.
So that's where we're at right now in Illinois, and I hope it changes.
Start watching now at colememo.com/minidoc.